Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're recording. Do you want to start the timer on the thing? Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the first podcast. I'm just starting my timer because we'll talk a lot. And this is the first podcast for Collecting Survive Record Shop. So it's going to be just as good as the videos, which is probably not very good. And probably lots of like talking into the mic and out of the mic and into the mic and out of the mic and us running over and not talking about what we should be talking about and Tom saying ridiculous things. No. So welcome, I'm Alan, and I run Collect and Survive Record Shop here in Liverpool, United Kingdom. I say UK, like we're going to get lots of...
For our international audience.
For our international audience, not plural.
Bonjour.
Welcome. So what we do in this record shop is sell records. Well, I say that. We do sell records, but some of them come in and I don't sell them. I just keep them. So I guess it's every middle-aged person's or middle-aged, probably particularly men's.
Alan has a good eye for buying records, and some of you might be lucky enough to actually get the chance to buy some of them.
Buy some, yeah. If they're
the
ridiculously inflated prices, it means that I actually don't want to sell them, and I want to keep them, which is pretty much all of them, apart from the Barbara Streisand LPs. So we sell second-hand records. We've got a site on Discogs, so you can go and look that up. It's Collect Survive. And if you're lucky enough to be in the northwest of Liverpool, pop in and see us. We do all sorts in the shop. We sell obviously second-hand, predominantly records. We do some new stuff. I sell stuff that I like off labels like Johnny Trunk and Numero and Discord. Stuff that but it's not every single new release. It's just stuff that I can afford to get because it's a second-hand record shop. But we've got some cool gear. We've got cool vintage hi-fi, and we got an old jukebox. And so we thought we'd start this podcast so we can talk about things that interest us in and around music. So so I'm Alan. This is Tom.
Hello.
I thought Tom was going to say something. All right, so what we'll do is we'll just give you a couple of minutes, and this is really great for those who are listening without the screen, like audio only. I'll show you some records.
Without the screen listeners.
This is all without the screen listeners. I do a weekly flick through video, and if you watch them, well, I mean, God help you. I think my mum's even stopped watching them now, so that means like no one's watching them. So people stumble across them and email me like upset to say I don't understand it, and I'm like, no, you're not meant to understand.
If anyone does watch them, they won't be watching this.
Yeah. If you've stumbled across this and you're thinking, oh, it might be the same as that, it's even worse. This is probably going to be this would be even better because Tom will be talking about some interesting things.
It's not that. It's just there's two of it. I mean, it might be doubly worse. Rather than
but what we're gonna do? We're gonna have a theme of each one, aren't we? And then if we get them, in fact, we're not even bothered about who's listening or whatever feedback. We're just gonna do it because this is kind of cathartic midlife crisis shit for us, isn't it?
Yeah, it gives me a reason for all the absolute sort of nonsense I get obsessed with in my personal life. It gives it a reason now, a point.
Yeah, you can write notes and come on to do a podcast.
Notes anyway. I've got books
come on to do a podcast and tell you all about all the flags that are lifting up on South Road or the lateness of buses. Do you do that sort of stuff, Tom, or is it more about?
No, it's all music, like weird music based. Yeah. If there's some sort of community based around flag, road maintenance music.
Yeah.
Then I'll be.
You'll probably buy that, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about interesting musical genres, and we're not trying to be clever or out there or weird or anything. We'll talk about any music, but we just happen to have today pick one which is a bit like pretentious.
But I think it's not. It's trying to. For me, it's trying to take away the sort of pretentiousness of it and say it's just it's all just music. Things that are seen. I was talking about this with my partner the other day. Stuff that's seen as like high. What's it? Not high class. Highbrow. There's that thing in Richard Osman's House of Games. If you watch that, they do a question where there's a highbrow one and a lowbrow one. Laura, my partner, knows all the highbrow ones.
Yeah.
But that's just because she's into like literature and art and stuff.
Does highbrow
just
mean in depth?
But I don't know. But it's just stuff that she's interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know either of them because none of it is ever really stuff that I'm interested in. So, but taking away the highbrow of it, it's just stuff that you might be interested in.
Yeah.
And so just because it's largely unheard of or like niche or whatever, doesn't mean that it's like cool or like highbrow. I mean, this isn't highbrow, but you know what I mean. It's just stuff that we're interested in, putting it out there for anyone who maybe hasn't heard about it, and for you to, you know.
I think though sometimes if you're coming at it, you're already maybe on a sticky wicket, having a middle-aged men doing a podcast based in a second-hand record shop. And already, all we need is a microbrewery at the back, and you know we will have
There's a Carsby sweater,
or yeah, or some sort of like hipster coffee bar type thing, and we will have you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because we're coming at it from that perspective. It looks it's not meant to be.
No,
We're genuinely just into music, and we're not trying to go out and find something that nobody else knows about. Not at all. We're not going to be talking about there's some new music coming out of like the East Coast, and it's this, and we're into it first. We mentioned the name of the band first.
No.
None of that.
And it's stuff that
We're going to be.
Well, with the internet, there's nothing that anyone, like a lot of people, really haven't heard of. As soon as something's on the internet, there's fairly quickly there's at least a few hundred people, onto it straight away. So
But we're not like identifying new bands, and we do actually. So we're not doing that to be pretentious. We do actually in the shop push and try and help any new bands, particularly not just local, but those that are local can pop in, and they put on. They'll do gigs once every Saturday or whatever. Anyway, so with timers. Screen's gone off, but
also I think we're pretty far from being hipsters. I think
we are
comfortably far from that.
God, I mean, you're a bit more hipster than me, I think.
Only 'cause I'm a few years younger than you.
Yeah, you
That's
are.
it.
You're about 10 years younger than me, aren't you?
No, only about 4 or 5. Then.
Oh yeah.
I'm 46.
Oh yeah, I'm 51. I think. Anyway, right. So what we'll do is we'll just talk through. We'll get some structure to this, but. Eventually, but we'll talk through some new things that have come into the shop. We'll talk about things that are happening we think are interesting around the place. Maybe some things that might not get that much exposure. I think it's fair to say Tom and I are probably a bit more into, what would you say, is it fair to say alternative? Is it fair to say just metal? Is it fair to say?
I don't like that. But what I mean, what's like again with the internet? What's alternative anymore? Everyone can.
Yeah, like we're not going to be going. Here's what's on at the NEC. What's the Liverpool's equivalent to the NEC?
Oh, the Liverpool Echo.
Yeah, because it doesn't need it, and unless it was
right left of centre, I'd say left of centre music. Slightly more like or generally unusual, or the more abrasive, or the more extreme, whether it be loud or quiet.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean,
interesting. Yeah,
it's not just that because we got a load of analog synth stuff, don't we, in the shop?
Hipster stuff.
Hipster stuff. Yeah. So we'll talk about that and promote that, and anything cool and interesting. So before we get into new stuff into the shop, which I do, if you're interested in new stuff that does come into the shop, there's a weekly YouTube flick through video, which I suggest you don't waste your time watching. Just turn the sound down. Honestly, this is just all cathartic midlife crisis stuff, isn't it? It's just us getting stuff off our chest. It's like. I'm sure there must be a Half Man Half Biscuits song about people doing podcasts and thinking that then makes them turn them into something. We're under no illusion that this is doing anything for us, or that's not the reason we're doing it. It's Tom and I like talking about stuff, and there might be other people who want to listen to this rubbish, because I know I quite like listening to idiots talk.
Yeah, most of my favourite podcasts, they always say we'd be sitting talking about this anyway, so why not,
Why not put it out there? And also, it is exposure for the shop. So whilst it is talking about stuff, it is a capitalist retail outlet, and we want your money. It's actually not. It's not profit making. We just put it all back into the shop. I say we. It's
just you.
Tom comes and works, and
well, Liv does.
Liv works on a Saturday.
Yeah,
but you do as well. Right. So what have we got new in the shop, Tom?
Right.
These are just interesting things. We got a load of standard Fleetwood Mac rumours and all that sort of good stuff, but go on.
So first up we have this really good, it's a Slits.
Ooh.
The pop group. Split 7-inch.
Ooh. It's unusual to get that kind of post-punky stuff, and stuff like Slits, and I see you got Suicide there. That sort of bit more. We do get like loads of Susie and the Banshees and Jam, and and I've got there's a members
Red Star
Records,
Suicide,
but it's unusual to get this sort of interesting stuff in, and a lot of this will be on Discogs.
Septic Death, Kitschy Eye, I can never pronounce it. 7-inch. It's the original 8/8. It's got the insert. Pusshead artwork.
So just some examples of some of the cool stuff that we have in the shop.
Magazine.
Ooh.
Do-do-do.
And for those of you not watching, we're just showing you the records.
The Lars, there she goes, 7-inch.
The Lars.
I heard, and this is the
Be
song.
careful.
That was true.
We were just talking about the Lars before.
That's the song that's the most used song in advertising.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Is it?
Which
really?
is funny because it's about.
Oh, is
There
it?
she goes, racing through my veins,
Oh, right. Okay.
and I will never forgive the feeling that remains
Oh.
with sweatiness. Foo Fighters 7-inch.
Foo Fighters.
Everyone's friend Dave Grohl.
Everyone's friend Dave Grohl.
Trojan. What's this? The Scatterlights
It's
and
Roland Alfonso, right?
in the Trojan
Yeah.
bag.
But it's got Guns and Navarone on the B-side, isn't it?
Guns!
Skylight.
Yep. Of Navarone.
Dr. Alimentado.
Nice green sleeves.
Yeah, Dr. Alimentado. The funkiest dressed chicken in town.
And then we have new Scream release, Discord.
Yeah.
Straight from
Discord.
The Discord house.
I went to DC recently, and if you don't know anything about, I was going to buy records, and I just thought, well, see, I'll go and get a photo outside the Discord house, and I was very politely told not to come. No, I wasn't. I was very, very, very kindly Ian Mackay. How do you pronounce his surname?
Do you know what? I forgot to look this up. I
Right.
I never know.
Okay.
It's been years.
Well,
I don't know.
anyway, he
I think it's
very
Mackay.
kindly allowed me to take some photos and spoke to me about the history of Discord, and we had a good conversation about all sorts of other cool stuff. He's a very nice guy, and plus his team at Discord there. Silver Sun, this band, they've just re-released them. Don't bend the sleeves, lad.
I'm trying to get
Anyway, Silver Sun are one of those bands. They're like massive in Japan, and they sound like a mixture of Queen. They've got the Queen vocals going on, and a bit kind of rock poppy, but very catchy tunes. And I think they should have been enormous, and they weren't. And sadly, the chap out of it, James, what's his name? I can't remember. God, I'm sorry, but I can't remember his name. Anyway, he died about a year or two ago. Really young guy, and it was tragic. Anyway, I went to see Silver Sun. I got madly into them. I went to see them in Liverpool years ago, 15 years ago, something, and they were brilliant. They were supported by a band called the Young Offenders, seems to remember, who were also very good. Queen Live Killers, that's one of the first Queen albums I ever bought, and I set me cushions up like a drum kit and pretended. I used to put the video on live at Wembley, and then as the whole build up for One Vision was coming on, right? Because it's a great, that's a good. We were talking about Queen Live before.
Yeah.
That's a great example of them doing it really well and rocking out. And I used to run into the front room like I was getting on the stage. So I'd turn the lights off. I'd run in the front room and I'd have all the cushions set up like a drum kit. And then I stopped playing drums. And then even worse, when I got a drum kit, the poor neighbour next door, who was like a taxi driver working nights, I'd come home from school, I'd put it on like the vinyl record, and and then I'd go out the door, put me Roger Taylor like stripy top on and my sunglasses, and then run in at the start of One Vision to play my my Premier Olympic drum kit, and I'd do like the fucking, excuse my language, I'd do the gig, and then all you did is this, as he was banging on because like it was like banging on, because he was like getting off and do nights on the Delta, and I was like, I thought I was Queen Live at Wembley. Anyway, so there's some records underneath there. If you just want to show a couple of those. And we will move on to the main feature. We're going to have one every time we do one of these. We'll have a main feature, as we've discussed. Our main feature. And Tom's come up with some crackers. So we got, like, if you're looking for something for Christmas.
Yeah. Ideal for Christmas.
We do framed album covers, which they look all right. So if you want to buy something cool, then we do framed album covers. That's it. And we do vouchers. Right, that's all the sales over. Right, let's get all that crap out of the way. Oh, and also, if anybody's going abroad and they want to take this with them,
or anywhere in UK, really.
Anywhere in the UK,
Anywhere interesting.
but preferably if you're going somewhere really like the Amazon or something. We've started off a Instagram page called Trumpet to Go, and what we're doing is this album is going to get photographed in lots of interested places. So I've already started it off with DC. So it's got its first outing in DC. So come and get that from the shop if you want it. I don't really want to have to post it. I think the idea is whoever does it has to take it with them, and you can leave it with somebody else to take it. But I didn't really know anybody. I was too embarrassed to say. Just leave it at the Discord house and go. Yeah, when you're going over to whatever.
It'd be the ideal reason for them to get Fugazi back together.
I think
take
so.
On tour.
I think so. Yeah. Bring it back to Liverpool. Yeah. Anyway, very interested. Right. So what's next, Tom?
So what I have had
Interesting things happening.
I need to put an end to my current obsession with what's commonly known as elevator music. Or in the UK, apparently, fun fact, it was known as piped music. But you all know as elevator music. Stuff like, it's commonly known as Muzak. Stuff that we don't hear as much. It was always like used in sort of in America in malls or shopping centres, you know, that sort of background.
Yeah.
But it was a funny thing that I'd never really thought about it till I read that in the UK we don't really or maybe in Europe we don't hear it that much, but we all know it from like a chase scene or an action scene in a film where they inevitably, it's all action running and then they get in the lift and it all stops and then there's always Girl from Ipanema going boom, 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 like that, you know, that stuff.
Do you remember it anywhere? Like I'm trying to remember if I remember it like from the Strand.
I thought I did.
Or from any shops, and I can kind of I think I remember hearing something like that in remember in like did I have like Victor Value or Quick Save or Cordon Bleu. Remember that one in the village? Yeah. In Crosby Village. Which for all you international listeners was like, as it sounds, Cordon Bleu. We'd all buy our Black Forest Gateaux from Cordon Bleu. And I thought they had it in places like that.
Yeah, I always thought I did, but I think it's like one of those thingy memories, you know.
False memories.
False memories. Yeah. And I think I just know it from cultural references.
Right.
Pop culture references. Yeah. And it started when, in the lockdown, I worked through most of the lockdown, or through all of the lockdown. And because of my job, I was on the phone to doctors and council buildings and stuff like that a lot. And I was inevitably on hold for, you know, a long time, like half an hour plus at a time.
Yeah.
So I was always listening to
Four Seasons.
Hold music. Well, yeah, Four Seasons. And there's another one that I've forgotten to look up, which if I played it, you'll all know it. It's this famous, but it's really good. Yeah. So it was the people who own the house that I worked at. I was on the phone to them a lot, and I'd always look forward to it because the hold music was really good. And then I got thinking about who are the big hitters in hold music, who are like the Beatles of hold music who's
heroes.
the Beethoven of what's going on in the hold music scene, because it's got to be out there. And I didn't find anything, but I have in the last 2 days, in fact. Just discovered something.
UK or American?
I'm not exactly sure yet. I've just saved a bunch of links.
Do you remember when you used to hear it, though? I'll just pipe in and say, when you hear it and you're on the phone, for some inexplicable reason, about because it'd be like about a 20-second loop. Right? But about 15 seconds in, it would go.
It's when the answer tape is rewinding or whatever.
So, and what would be most annoying? Not that you'd have to repeatedly listen to like that little excerpt of Nigel Kennedy, but that you'd have to wait. You'd be waiting for the, which would just be slightly annoyingly. I think they put that in on purpose. So you just put the phone down.
Up. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, never thought about it. Yeah. Or it'd be always like really bad versions of Coldplay songs or something by the time. So
not actually Coldplay, but
yeah.
I wonder what the PRS is for that, and now you have to pay.
It's got to be
presumably you just have to pay for it.
Well, when you look at like those KPM we'll get to that in a minute.
All right. So, but before that's the main feature, right? So before we get into that,
okay.
We're just going. So that's what we're going to talk about in a minute, and we'll talk about through what we've kind of heard and what we think is interesting, and what we think maybe if you want to give it a go, you should maybe just touch on. All this stuff is going to be available on like YouTube and Spotify, anything that we're going to touch on. And there's a few different genres of things we thought we'd get into and touch on. We're not going to get like, it's not going to be pretentious. I keep saying that, but it's not. It's just that if it sounds rubbish, we probably won't. You know, not all music is great, is it? I mean, and it's all
some of the stuff's awful.
Yeah,
but you know, it's interesting.
But it's interesting to get into it, and but before we do that, so before we get into that main feature, we were going to talk about very quickly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. Interesting things happening in and around this area at the moment. So where are we? With the 28th, Tuesday 28th. We'll probably put this out this week, so it will be out by the weekend, let's say. So
Yep.
so what have we got going on?
I've got a few gigs that are coming up. From sort of what I'm sort of personally into and involved with. It's all around the sort of punk hardcore sort of scene. But on the 8th of December, Outpost on Renshaw Street in Liverpool, TS Warspite, Blood Feud, Ruined Virtue, Step Beyond, Endure, and Big Problem are playing.
Ooh.
If you wanna, how much is it? It's £10 on the door or £8 in advance. Check out Counterculture Records on Instagram. They're at Counterculture Records. You can get that through their site and everything on there. Also, actually, this Saturday, Slumber Grump, our Liam is putting on Clayface and Mug Smasher. The brilliant Mug Smasher.
Big up to Lee. Not Lee, Liam. Sorry, mate.
And
Liam might actually watch this, so sorry, mate.
Yeah.
Liam, of course.
Sorry if this does more damage than good. But Clayface with Mug Smasher and All Right and Great Silence. And that's Outpost again on Renshaw Street. It's £8 on the door. And then lastly, on the 24th of February, Fatalist are playing with the amazing Codebreak, the amazing Muddle, and Chain of Survival's second gig. That is again at Outpost.
Outpost.
£8 on the door.
Oh, Outpost is an interesting venue, isn't it? And obviously,
it's great.
We know Ian, who does the sound there, and bands who've played there. But it's one of those venues, and it's Liverpool's obviously very famous for kind of singer-songwriters, and it's got lots of those venues, and there's a bit of indie, but not so much for the kind of hardcore metal. I mean, when we say hardcore, hardcore is like a alt punky metally type of music.
Yeah,
if
it's
you don't know what that is, not
extreme
to insult
version
you.
of punk.
Yeah, okay, great. I think it's helpful to. Yeah.
These days, a lot of it's quite metally, but it's all around sort of punk, DIY values.
But Liverpool's it doesn't have many venues like that. So the oldest one I remember is like
The Planet.
The Planet, yeah,
Planet
X. Planet X, where I think, I definitely saw. I can't even remember the gigs I saw there because I remember just like looking at the ceiling and thinking, oh my god, because it was there,
rain,
and
sweat,
and it was just wet.
Yeah.
It was the strangest thing. I'm sure I saw Therapy there, but
yeah,
I can't.
Therapy did play there.
But I can't remember.
They covered Holidays in Cambo.
It must have been because that was when I was
California Revolvers.
Well, anyway, so look, but there's not many of those venues left, and Outpost has opened up on Renshaw Street, and again, this is just not dissing any other type of music or any other venues. Just there's lots of that sort of stuff available, right? There's lots of the singer-songwriter who say brilliant,
lots,
but there's lots of it, and Liverpool is strong and punches well above its weight in terms of artists, etc. But there's less kind of focus on that side, so it's nice to have a really friendly, kind of old school type venue where lots of the same type of people go. You're very safe if you're into that sort of music,
and it's like run by people who would be at the gig anyway.
Yeah,
it's a pizza place. It used to be I can't remember what it used to be called. It was called something else. Then it got took over by someone else who was like a friend of whoever was running it before, and now it's called Outpost, and it's a pizza place, and you can go and get vegan, veggie, meat pizzas, and you can get booze and a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. But then in the back, they've got a little box room in the back, and you go through, and it's a gig room. Well, it's a room that gigs happen in. And you can stand there and you can eat pizza and drink a cup of tea while watching bands, which is like heaven. Or you can get your face smashed in. In a nice, loving,
we're trying to
creative.
Oh,
way.
you mean just getting in the mosh pit or something? Okay, so he doesn't mean like by violent idiots. He just means by getting in the mosh. In fact, I thought it was a very safe place, and I felt
it
like
is,
like if you were like sort of younger, like 17, 18 or whatever. I don't know if you can get in actually if you're below 18, but I thought and you're looking for something that has that vibe. You get along there. I thought
it's
it was
great.
the sort of place where there's definitely something going on, isn't there?
Yeah,
There's
it's very
definitely
welcoming.
in inverted commas scene happening
at
the moment, which is brilliant. So anyway, so that's going on. I just want to mention the Heavy North are playing on Friday. They're doing they just released a second album, and friends of the shop, and they're a great bunch of lads. But they got a new album out, and that's brilliant. And they're playing Camp and Furnace, and I think it's like 800 people. I think they've and what I know for a fact, 'cause they were just telling me the other day that they've almost sold that out.
Yeah, that's a big.
So that's like their big push, their big gig, and you can just see they are I don't know what going up means
Trajectory.
in today's, because you have to put your own records out and all that sort of stuff. But they're getting interest and they're getting fans and they're putting out great music, and that's brilliant. So
Yeah, go and support.
that's Friday. Go and support them. And we have got their records in the shop, and I think they're also selling them in Jacaranda in Liverpool, and Wax and Beans are giving them a lot of support. That's a record shop out in Bury, I think. I don't know the people who run these shops, but I think it's important to give them a shout out. So good. So there we go. Is there anything else, Tom? Before we move on, we tried to. We did a podcast before. I mean, it was like an hour and 20 minutes, and it was probably a bit funnier, wasn't it?
Yeah, it probably was.
Because we had no holds barred, and we were just getting well into
court cases,
libel, which was brilliant. So okay, so let me just, the other thing I guess I'll say is a bit cold. No, shop opening hours, Christmas Crimbo lads coming up. So we'll be open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then I think up the week before Christmas we'll open the whole week, and then over Christmas we'll just open any trading days. So we'll open the Sunday, Christmas Eve, 10 till 4, 11 till 4, 10 till 4, close at 4. And I just really want someone to be banging on the door at 10 past 4.
Yeah.
Going, God, have you got an emergency? Have you got an emergency Chris Christopherson album?
Have you got the best of ABBA?
Have you got that Beatles album? The best of the Beatles?
Sergeant Pling Plong's army band.
I just love that. But I don't know about you, but on Christmas Eve, I've worked in a few shops on Christmas Eve over the many years, and it's not real. I did it once because I was working in a shop and forgot to buy my mum a present. Do you know what I did?
Yeah. Do you mean
This
what?
is awful. My mum's listening to this. I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'll caveat that. So I went to the bookshop next door. I was working in Crown Records, and I went to the bookshop next door at 5:05, and everybody was gearing up to go to the pub, right? And I was like, God, what do I buy my mum? I'll buy her a book. Oh my God, what do I buy her? And I bought her, and she remembers it. I bought her 2 bookends with sheep on, and I bought her a who's that disgraced Tory MP?
Which one?
Who's the author? Cain and Abel.
Oh, yeah. Does he do travel stuff now?
No,
not him.
He was in prison, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. I can't remember his name. With the wife.
I bought a book by him, and my mum was like, "For Christmas Day." I mean, parents do a great job of just hiding disappointment, don't they?
Yeah.
But my mum just was like, "What? Why have you bought me? What's his name? James? What's his name? George James."
I think I'm thinking
but you know what I mean. And I felt terrible. So sorry, Mum. Anyway,
I'm glad we cleared that up. You were always going on about that.
Who's the author to Cain and Abel?
I remember the guy being in prison when I was little.
I'm going to look it up while Tom now gets to talk to you about. Should
Okay.
we get on to the main feature?
Yeah, go on. Right. Okay. So
we're doing all right. We're 27 minutes in. I mean, by all means, leave some comments and tell us, why we're wasting our time, and tell us how rubbish the sound is, which is what people love to seem to do. Someone left me a comment once.
Go on.
It sounds awful. I'm like, that's just the way I talk, mate.
That was the guy that I couldn't get over it. He was like, I was unable to listen to it. I was like, really? Like, what do you expect?
I know.
Anyway, So, from
Jeffrey Archer. Jeffrey Archer. Sorry, Mum. I'm sorry. I panicked. It was 1988. I'm sorry. Anyway,
I just remember
rubbish Christmas presents.
I remember having to pretend on Christmas Day that how excited I was for records that Mum and Dad, God bless them, had been out and bought off the beaten track records that I'd obviously found in the week leading up to Christmas and taped them all. I was already well firm into all these albums when I got them. Sorry, Mum and Dad.
What, you've been through the upstairs in
Just knew where they were.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, no means no. Thank you. 2 Black Flag albums. Thank you. These,
Tom showing off getting Black Flag albums for Christmas when I was getting Pipes of Peace by Paul McCartney. Not that that's a bad
Pipes
record.
Pipes of Peace is it's great.
Not that that's a bad record.
Taped. I don't tape.
I was like, yeah. Anyway, so let's so we'll do our main feature, which is going to be talking about.
Yes. So
what are we doing the Kmart stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think because that's how I came into it. So thinking about this whole music, and I was thinking about what we all know as Muzak. That's the thing we all think of. And I went looking, and I couldn't find anything at first, but I discovered there's a really good podcast called Night Clark Radio, which is primarily sort of a lot about the sort of different wave scenes, be it like vaporwave, signal wave, more soft.
You got to explain that.
Okay, so the wave scene in general, something wave. The vaporwave is the most popular one. It is it's based on sort of what's the word? Looking back, reminiscent of old things. It sort of focuses on late 80s to early 90s, like consumerist culture, vaporwave.
Okay.
So it samples.
Is it fair to say? Is it samples or analog synthy stuff?
Originally, it was all samples. Now there's people who are starting to create their own. In that sounds like So it would be a lot.
And that's because that's relatively simple. I don't mean to cut you off, but is it simple music to kind of produce at home in a simpler environment?
So the earliest,
you don't need to be going into a studio.
God, no. So the early stuff, they would be sampled a lot of like say 80s pop, like sax solos and 80s pop, that sort of like crappy jazzy stuff, and like adverts from the 80s or things like that. But it'd always be sort of slowed down and put like a lot of reverb on it, so it'd be like dreamy and a bit like weird but nostalgic. That's the word.
And did imagery go with that? So is that very much like they produce the music, but which you can listen to standalone, but because it's quite evocative of imagery and over time, do they put that with video, and therefore it's better to kind of consume it on YouTube, for example?
And a lot of it's released on cassette as well, and or they do it on vinyl, mostly cassette, but they also do it on vinyl and mini disc. There's albums released on VHS, so it's like a whole product.
Retro.
And now people are starting to make their own music, just it's evocative of that old stuff. So then signal wave is sort of a similar stuff, but it's all some of it's based on like old. I say the easiest description is like an old lost radio station.
Oh right, okay.
You can get a lot of Soviet wave, which is like old dead, Russian radio stations, and it's all done with like beats behind it, and it's all very dreamy and
so it's all very Cold War.
Yeah, Cold War stuff. And then there's like the dream punk stuff, which is more like Blaze Runner based ambient stuff, and it goes on. And more soft, which is Muzak. Moors, but some of it has like you can hear people walking around, and it'll have like adverts in the background. You can So anyway,
I listened to one and it was called Shred Wave, and it was like a 1980s guitar solos, highly overproduced sort of music over kind of analog synthy stuff, just like listening to a kind of like a 1980s Yes album or Journey or Boston or something, but well overdone, and no vocals that seem to.
No, not really. No. Sometimes they will sample old vocals and like slow them down, but Night Clark Radio podcast. It's a really good podcast. It deals with all stuff like that and other different styles of music, not just that, but it's heavily about that. And on one of them, there's an episode called Attention K-mart Shoppers. And in it, they talk about a guy who worked at Kmart through the late 80s, early 90s. He kept, so in Kmart in America, they would have this music on in the background, and they'd have each month, I think they'd have a tape for that month. Right. And it would just get played constantly on a loop. And it would have like a few songs, then an advert, and then a few songs, and then, about sales.
Special offers, yeah.
And he kept all these tapes and then eventually uploaded them to the Internet Archive, which is archive.org, which is a fountain, it's brilliant. And he uploaded them on there, and you can go and listen to them on there. And then other people who had old tapes or reel-to-reels from like the 60s uploaded them. So there's a fountain of all this sort of Muzak stuff on there with all the Kmart adverts, and it's brilliant. And from that, I started listening to them and found them really interesting. And from that, I went into wondering, like, what's the history behind all this stuff? Yeah. So
they stole the tapes from Kmart.
Yes. Didn't you say so?
There was a joke. Yeah, I would. There's a. If you look up on YouTube, what's the guy's name? Mark something.
I can't remember.
Yeah, Mark. It's something. But just look up Kmart tapes and Mark. Anyway, he's quite funny because he was talking about keeping these tapes, and they'd all keep them for him, and then other people would send him tapes in, and then the loss prevention officer from Kmart got in contact with him to say, I guess I let this one slip through the net or something, which is kind of funny post event.
So it was like before.
But don't steal kids. Anyway,
don't steal from independent retailers. So it was all like they'd have music specially sort of made for this stuff, and then in the Kmart anyway. Then after '92, it was all like popular, chart hits. Yeah. Like smooth jazz stuff.
So what do you find more interesting? Do you find the stuff that is actually made?
For
Kmart is more interesting? Because I guess from a historical perspective, it is interesting to look at how it changed and all that sort of jazz. And that documentary on YouTube is very interesting of how it changed.
Yeah, there's one.
But really, you don't want to sit down and listen to Jennifer Rush and an advert for baked beans, and then Meatloaf and an advert for it's more interesting to hear what crazy music they were getting.
And some of it is covers, but it's an in-house little mini orchestra somewhere covering covering whatever.
That's the best. I mean, we're getting into the kind of Top of the Pops albums and all that sort of stuff because they produced them because it was obviously cheaper.
Yeah,
you didn't have to pay the record company because the artist very rarely.
And so over here, if you go into most charity shops, you'll see stuff by Jeff Love and his orchestra, and that's very much like big movie themes or.
That's what people were buying, and we laugh and joke about things like James Last, but of course, where's the camera? Oh yeah, there. But of course, this stuff was super popular in the UK, and it's kind of ish in the same ballpark, isn't it? And all
Easy
that stuff.
stuff.
I remember when I was 11, we had a party, and me dad got loads of music and loads of tapes, but it was all cassettes, and it wasn't obviously the real artists.
Yeah.
So I remember hearing Ghost Town by the Specials, but obviously it wasn't the Specials. But you know what? They weren't. When you're 11, they weren't bad.
No,
it was pretty. It was. I remember thinking, this is whatever this is. I love it.
Yeah.
And it made me just like kind of get a bit fixated on the Specials.
Yeah.
And then you'd hear the real one on Top of the Pops, and then if you had enough money, you'd say, go and buy it, obviously.
And also, if you're a bit of a crate digger and like a beat maker into stuff, making electronic musical beats, some of these stuff that you can get in charity shops dead cheap have some great drum breaks on them, or and especially some of the stuff where they're covering TV themes from the 70s, like the Ironside theme tune, has a brilliant break on it. But yeah.
We're gonna maybe we should do another podcast on that. I've played you that Working Man's Club Soul CDs,
we definitely should. That's brilliant.
And the stuff on there is there's just to very quickly divert. Maybe we'll cover this in another podcast. Leave a comment below. No, don't. We won't read it. We're not gonna read it.
Oh, I will.
We will read it, but it's only gonna be like because obviously we're vain. It'd be my mum going, "Very good, son. I didn't understand any of it, but it was very good." No, what I was gonna say was and we'll get back to this, but when you start digging about for music, I guess is one thing I will say, that you just end up going off down all sorts of rabbit holes, and there's such good stuff out there. I bought these 2 CDs called Working Men's Club Soul, and it's all bands who had played in working men's clubs, and there's some originals, but a lot of them are covers, and there's some, there's 2 CDs, there's about 40 tracks, there's only one track on there that I think, that's not very good. The rest of them are
it's
amazing, so much so that I've even gone out and bought, there's a guy called Brian Sharp,
right,
who does a version of Aquarius.
Yeah.
And he's a Wurlitzer player, so he's playing Wurlitz, not even
which
like a B3.
Easy to play.
He's playing Wurlitzer, and it wigs out.
Yeah.
It's a wig out in the middle. I'll tell you, I'm kind of getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's such a good tune.
I've listened to both those comps a good few times and thought that I'd pay to go and see some of those bands if they were in town. I'd be like, oh, definitely go and see them.
I even was going to try and get in contact with Brian Sharp and get him to come down. He sadly died. But anyway, so we might get onto stuff like that. Again, this is not us being presented. This is just us finding, there's some amazing stuff out there once you start scratching beneath the surface. And
for any of the stuff, there's always like a community or like a little scene of people who are really into this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure I get involved in any of that.
I never get involved, but I like to dip in and see what's going on.
Because you're going to get someone correcting you, aren't you? And we're not those sorts of people. We are not like,
I don't know.
I think I think you'll find, gang. I hate people like that. You say something, you might get it wrong because whatever, and somebody will go, actually, I think you'll find. And you'll go, actually, I think you can.
I will try and tell, but I'll try not to say actually, because I want people, I just want people to, so they know. I don't want to sort of say
if it's relevant, right? You won't like patronise them just because you want to prove that you know more about it. But there's plenty of people out there.
Oh yeah.
And we're getting well off the subject here, but I will just say, I knew two. I've spoken about this in the last one, but what immediately springs into my mind when I think about that is I was living in a house once with 2 New Model Army fans, and they would just constantly correct each other on how to do the New Model Army dance. And I mean, it was like, actually, no, it's not like that. Actually, I think you'll find it was
clog
like
sizes.
It was such passive aggressive nonsense, clog sizes, and how to do it. And they were like, it was almost like Beach Street. They were sort of dancing in front of each other. It was like a dance, and I was like, it's not. Is this not important?
Did they ever do human pyramids?
Yeah. One of them started climbing up the wall in the house. and
I-
hanging off the walls.
When
And
I was like 16, I was big
this is
into
what I
New
do
Model
at the
Army.
gig and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was big into New Model Army when I was 16 and went to gigs, and it was like violent for this, like,
Yeah.
folky whatever, and people would be doing human pyramids and all kinds of
Yeah.
clog nonsense.
It's not to have a go at New Model Army fans. It was just happened to be applied that. Anyway, we're getting way off topic, and we'll probably run out of time. So back to the Kmart stuff.
Well, right, okay, so yeah, when I was looking into the Muzak, and it was all this stuff. Music became
We're 40 minutes in, and we're starting
Jeez.
our main feature.
right.
So it might be an hour long. So there you go. Just turn
Basically,
it off.
this guy who started
Mark.
Muzak. Yeah. So this guy who started Muzak became an actual name in 1934. Became a registered trademark. Since and it was basically Muzak's the name for all sort of background music, known as elevator music or whatever. In the UK, it was known as pipe music, and it was made in factories initially,
Yeah.
and they pipe it in, different moods for like the morning,
Oh, yeah.
the work time, and break time, whatever, and wind
Presumably
down.
a bit of psychology behind that to
I'm sure
know,
there is, yeah.
like
yeah.
super fast
Yeah.
tempo sort of
Marching
beats
stuff
to get you
makes-
like hammering quicker.
Yeah. It was techno all
Yeah, they
afternoon.
played techno when you were building the Titanic, so they go poof, 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 did
That's why they
hammer
got
the
it wrong,
riveting.
'cause they were all off their heads. Sank. R.I.P. the Titanic. Sorry if you've not seen the film. Spoiler alert.
That's a theory I've never heard. I've got down a few Titanic rabbit holes
'Cause they were
in
listening
my
to techno.
time,
Yeah.
but I've never heard that it sunk because they were listening to techno and they got the riveting wrong.
The Titanic never landed on the moon. That's what they say.
It's a good record.
So anyway, and this guy, he was the sort of the guy behind all this, and then he worked out that eventually you could send music into other people's homes. This was done in where is it? Where in Wu-Tang from? Staten Island. In I forget what it was.
60s, gotta be.
I think it was before that.
Really?
They had electronic music, music put into people's houses through their electronic wires, and they charge it to the electricity bill. And this was
Oh,
pre-radio.
Oh, right. So
Because-
like 20s or something.
Yeah, so radio technology was around, but it wasn't strong enough to sort of work.
Yeah.
And then eventually the radio technology took over, and it was a more.
That's incredible.
better
So there
way
must
to
be devices you can get that produce the sound. That
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
That are, I guess, receivers, transceivers, maybe.
I don't know.
You know that obviously. How do you play that music at the end?
Yeah.
You listen to your plug.
Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah, I actually didn't think about that. Yeah, it just
There
comes
must
out
be
the.
Some
Yeah, the
sort. I'll get
plugs.
one for the shop.
Yeah. And so eventually, when the radio took over, he thought, right, I'm going to go down a more commercial route, look at commercial clients, and it went into start going to more factories and shops and
Yeah.
blah blah blah, and then it was him that came up with the Muzak trademark. So he owned Muzak. Muzak's not a form of music. It's like the Hoover for a vacuum
Oh,
cleaner.
it's a trademark,
Hoover
it's a
is
name. Yeah.
and but he was the biggest guy doing it, and it became out there. And then there was their biggest competitor was a group called Seeberg,
Right.
who did their own record player called the Seeberg 1000, which is like, as soon as I read about this, my sort of collector mind started like kicking in. They did they made records that you could only play on the Seeberg, and
Oh,
they
right.
were 8-inch or 9-inch records, I forget now, and
Okay.
it had like 10 songs on each side, and the Seeberg would hold however many records to make 1,000 songs,
Okay.
and it would play them all and then play the other side like consecutively.
Yeah.
So they would just play constantly. And if you're curious as to what this sounds like, you go to seeberg1000.org.com.
Yeah.
Just search Seeberg 1000, SEEBURG 1000,
Yeah.
numbers 1000, and that website plays the Seeberg 1000 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
That's what we're all about.
Yeah, so you can just
Yeah.
have it streaming in the background.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I wrote all stuff down about patents and stuff, but it doesn't really matter.
It's interesting that they made records that could only be played. I wonder what that was. I mean, were they pressed records? Were they actually
Yeah, no vinyl. Yeah.
so vinyl records? But did they just have a?
I've seen some on sale on eBay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder
Yeah.
why they only played on.
Because so
ultimately
they couldn't just be buying records.
I know, but I
playing
wonder
any
if
old stuff.
technically what they were.
meant
that they could only be played by. You know, if it's a
'cause of the
vinyl
size.
record and it's pressed and
it was
you
the
use a pickup.
RPM as well. It was like it was a different. So the size was wrong.
All right, that
The
makes sense.
Old-fashioned records couldn't play. You know, the size with the wouldn't for whatever.
So the old records were like 10-inch.
Yeah,
like the old gramophone Bakelite.
I think these were like 8-inch or 9-inch. They were an odd size for the time.
Yeah, you still, if you think about it, you still
you could have,
because
couldn't
you can play them. It's I wonder if it's the way it fixed to the platter would have been different.
Maybe.
Or I wonder if it's actually I don't know.
I didn't write that down.
It'd just be interesting to find out. So get on it. No, just kidding.
If you work for the Seaberg company.
If you work for the Seaberg company and you're watching this, which obviously you should be.
So yeah, and then so from that,
I'll look it up while you're talking.
So the music thing. So then, I don't know what I'm talking about now. So there's loads of stuff. I started listening to it, and then I found out. So over here we have more sort of library music, which is music that's non-copyrighted and can be anything from bird sounds to orchestral music. But a lot of that stuff falls in with the Muzak. And if you look up, there's a record label called KPM who do a lot of stuff. That some of it is like falls into soundtracks from films.
Yeah.
Some of it is the Muzak that was used for factories or shopping places or whatever. And they've got these amazing compilation albums with all kinds on. And who's that one guy who's on Trunk Records?
Johnny Trunk?
No, it was a guy, and he's done loads of this Muzak stuff. He did the soundtrack to The Abominable Dr. Phibes, and then he does all this like free jazz stuff.
Bert, not Bert.
Oh,
anyway, the Seaberg stuff had a 5-inch hole in the middle, so like jukeboxes have like a 1-inch.
Yeah.
They had a 5-inch, or they played a 16 and a half RPM.
Yeah.
Well, you could get record players would play at 16 RPM, but not at that speed.
But you'd have to modify the center.
You'd have to modify the center, and you're talking about God, I'm sure I've got his records out here. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. I mean, so I've just found this world of this great music, and there's loads of stuff. I mean, on YouTube, if you look up like just mall music, and whatever, there's a guy out there who creates mixes of all old mall sort of music that he's collected.
Yeah.
He makes mixes and creates these like visual things to go with them. We'll put a link in the description to this guy's YouTube channel. It's phenomenal, the stuff he does, and he records them. It is from what I can gather, he puts compilations of other songs together. I think some he does himself, and then he records them all onto reel to reel, and then plays the reel to reel. So he makes the mixtape onto the reel-to-reel, then records the reel-to-reel mixtape onto YouTube with these visuals, so it gives it all the genuine sound. Like people go sort of that deep into it, and it's just great. It's good fun. So if you're ever doing some work or housework, or you just need something in the background to not take up too much of your brain, but take up enough attention, just look up any like Mall Soft or any sort of Mall Soft or Mall like Muzak mixes on YouTube. There's thousands of them. Also from that K-mart tapes, there's a really good album called Attention K-mart Choppers, and
Choppers.
And it's like chopped up. He's used all the K-mart tapes. This person chopped them all up as samples, and it's like a instrumental hip hop album.
Right.
And again, I'll put a link in the description because it's really good. And listen to that.
I'm trying to find the name of that. Basil Kirchin.
Basil Kirchin, that's him.
Ugh.
He's done everything from like the cheesiest like music to like really like hard, like difficult free jazz stuff.
Yeah,
he's phenomenal.
And there are some amazing artists, and a lot of them go under the radar, don't they? Do you know what? And similar to this vein is I was looking up something on YouTube called Freaker's Revenge. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So Freaker. What it is I got down a kind of rabbit hole once of like 70s cop show theme tunes. So, both what's his name?
Columbo.
No,
Petrocelli.
The artist.
Mike Post.
Well, yeah, a bit of Mike Post. Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of Mike Post as well.
Mike Post stuff is great. So Mike Post did Hill Street Blues and the Rockwood Files, but so there's some amazingly talented people out there producing amazing music, but obviously doing it as a job for like soundtracks and all that sort of stuff. And Mike Post is a great example, and you can get those TV albums, but there's There's who's that artist who did the Streets of San Francisco?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, it's I've got one of his records out here. Just look it up super quick and then remind me. This is awful because you do these podcasts. And you have these you think you're going to remember all this stuff, and then you just forget them when you're like put on a spot. But I got down that rabbit hole, and it led me to all sorts of like library music and TV recordings, and then down that trunk road, and like Johnny Dankworth and and
that trunk record stuff is phenomenal.
And a lot of it is put out on trunk, and it's not just your usual kind of the A-Team theme tune. It's more kind of incidental music produced for X.
I've got a Mike Post double A side 7-inch A-Team and the theme from Splash.
There you go.
It was Henry Mancini.
Henry Mancini, right? Henry Mancini. It was your all note for the Pink Panther theme, but he did Streets of San Francisco. And anyway, I was listening to that, and I just got down this rabbit hole on YouTube, which we all do. And something came up called Fraker's Revenge, and I can't even now work out whether it's original or whether someone's done it because there's very little information out there. But it's called one is called like Music for Your Ears or something, and it's all 1970s kind of like cop show stuff.
Oh right, yeah.
It's stuff like that. And then I did get down a rabbit hole of 1970s porn music, like and there's not enough I don't think to do like that I know enough about it to do like a podcast on it and get into detail, because I've got a couple of albums, and then there's something recently came out, Color Climax, which is obviously we don't really know that much about this stuff, but that is a big producer of pornography in the 70s. But there's someone, it's not them, but someone I think has reproduced the music because I bought it for like Record Store Day.
Yeah.
Like about 3 or 4 years ago. And there's a famous porn actress called Seiko something from I don't know, from the 70s, from the 70s, and she put an album out,
right? And
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. And I was looking up her on YouTube. I was listening to her music, and she actually there's some interviews on there, and just complete aside, she has to put up with a load of crap from people who were just you're a porn actress. She owned like all the distributors and stuff. She was like she was, I don't know, I presume she's still alive, I don't know, but anyway, the music, let's get back to the music. The music on that stuff, some of it is just obviously dreadful, some of it is fun, it's great.
I went to a night once, so I think I went 2 or 3 times, and there was 2 of the guys who were doing like sets. One was all charity shop records. It was the only stuff he bought in charity shops. The other guy did porn music.
There was a guy who came in here once, and he runs on X, formerly Twitter. He's got a site there called Charity Shop Classics, or his mate has or something. And I was holding a Cannon and Ball single, and he got all excited about it. And
really?
I gave it to him, and he was very excited. And he did tell me there's a rare James Last album, which he's missing as part of his collection.
Wow.
But the point is,
James Last collection, it must be huge.
There is some obviously rubbish out there, and there's some great stuff, and we're trying to help you, point you to some of the good stuff.
Also, sorry, with the Muzak, this guy Andy Clark, who was on a lot of the KPM records and did stuff through the 70s, but in the 80s went all electric. Yeah, and especially the Night Sensations.
Did he sell out? Was that like Dylan at Newport?
Yeah. Judas. His Night Sensations album by Andy Clark is really good.
I bet you that's NITE Sensations.
No, it's not, unfortunately.
Oh, it should be.
But also, that Attention K-mart Choppers is Juicy the Emissary. But there's a guy, Danny Scott Lane, who's a young guy around now, has done an album called Home Decor, which is really good. Just Muzak stuff.
So it's all. Where's that? Are we going to put some links?
Yeah.
When we put this out, one of us will put it out, and Tom will probably put the links in. And so what are we up to? I guess if you've enjoyed this, it's midday. Well, that doesn't matter to you because obviously you're just, dead air is a crime. 53 minutes.
There you go.
So
yeah,
look, it does. Hopefully you've enjoyed some of this and found it interesting and useful.
Anything we can do better, or you think we should do better, or change or whatever, do let us know. We will take heed.
Will we?
Well,
Tom will. Tom, but be careful. Tom takes things very personally, so just be very careful about what you say. Otherwise, he'll be doing a podcast on you, and he'll be reading out. And the other comment was, I couldn't hear what he was talking about.
I will dox you.
Why is he wearing that cap? Funny. How old is he? I can't read the band name on his T-shirt. Outpost put a poster out. There was loads of bands, and I couldn't make out any of the names of the bands.
I can't a lot of the time. Yeah, they should put a thing underneath, because otherwise, you're just like, I know that band looks like, but like I don't know what the.
That's brilliant. We're talking about heavy metal bands when they write in such. What would you call that writing? What's the style of it? What's
I don't
the
know.
font?
This one is fairly readable, in comparison.
Is that nihilist?
Nihility.
Nihility, of course, yeah. And of course, they make words up, which is even worse. You're trying to read it, and you think, what? What does that say about frying pans? And it's not. It's probably like frying death or something. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Maybe we should talk about fonts in music.
Yeah. Music fonts.
Music fonts. I mean, this is a lot of stuff that.
Shout out to Berthold City, which is the collegiate font, the college font.
Oh yeah.
Which a lot of 80s hardcore bands used.
Very good. I think that'll do it.
It will.
Not? Right, so we're going to put this out and enjoy it, and hopefully if you've got any requests for stuff that we can cover and try and do, you can tell that Tom did all the research on this one, right? I didn't do any. I watched that YouTube documentary.
Sorry for blanking. Oh yeah, there is we'll link that as well. There's a little YouTube documentary about the K-mart tapes.
And I tell you, and in all honesty, I thought some of the music was interesting, but I struggled to listen to like the original tapes from start to finish. I found it more interesting because I thought it was a bit clinical and a bit more like of an academic. I
definitely turned, like, at first I was, and then I eventually because I was just listening to so much of it, I crossed like a line.
And did you? Was it
settled
because
into it?
I was trying to listen to it and then enjoy it, and I don't know about you.
No,
or you, but the problem I have is if I'm listening to something someone's recommended it, and there's a podcast in this, I really try to like it. I struggle to like listen to it and see what other people.
Yeah.
Because people are so into something.
Yeah.
And I am. And you'll go, listen to this, and you'll put it on. You go, why aren't you as excited as me? And that's just taste,
the
right?
U2 theory.
Yeah, that's just taste.
But I think you've got to let it just not pay too much attention to it. Let it just be in the background. But yeah.
And then when your kids go, what the hell are you listening to? You go, I'm listening to a K-mart tape from 1989. And they'll go,
the best bit is the adverts, though. All the adverts.
They'll go, what's a tape?
Yeah.
Right, okay, so good. Right, happy days. So thank you, everybody. And we'll, what are we thinking? We'll put these out. We're not going to do them weekly, are we?
Let's just finish.
Let's just end. Right, see you later, bye.